Y'all decided to us today, and we have some more folks who are coming in. This is fabulous. We'll give folks another minute to get settled. For those who are just joining us, please say hello in the chat. Kathy from Castleberry is here. Indian River County in the house. Gainesville, Florida. Oh, this is awesome. We always love seeing the geographical diversity coming in. Conway's here. Hey, Pamela. Another Delaney Park. That's awesome. This is so great. Oh, thanks y'all for making the time to join us tonight. Claremont, Lakeland. I think this is that Titusville, Joe? Delaney Park. A lot of Delaney Park. Oh, I love that. I'm in Thornton Park, so I'm not too far from y'all. Oh, Peggy's. We love Peggy. Hi, Peggy. UHS and UCF grad. Oh, that's amazing. Go Cougars and go Knights. We love to see it. We love to see it. Cole's here too from UCF. Fabulous. Hey, Mac and Don. Great to see y'all. Go Cougars. Oh, it's good to see you, Kat. All right, so we're going to get started. We are letting some more folks come in as we kick this off, but I want to be respectful of everyone's time. And we have a lot to cover. My goal is to actually do this in an hour, which honestly, I don't know if we're gonna pull it off, but we're gonna do our best. So, first of all, Happy New Year, everyone. What a new year it has already been. What an intense 48 hours for 2026 especially at the international stage. I guess living with President Trump means that every day is uncertain and new news alerts and just concern for everyone. But that's why we're here is to control the destiny of our country, state, and city, to be active in civil society and to build collective power to make life better for the folks who call this planet and, of course, our community home. For those that don't know me, my name is Representative Dr. Anna V. Eskamani, and I'm just really thrilled that you've taken the time to join us on a Sunday night as we approach what's going to be a very busy Monday for everyone. I know my inbox is already going to feel the pressure when the sun rises tomorrow. But of course, we're also looking at a very important year, 2026. And so to kick things off, I always want to remind folks that we do have captions available. And so feel free, we'll make sure to type these directions in the chat as well. But you should see the little CC button that you can click on to enable captions for this Zoom. We try to be as accessible as possible. And so please make sure you take that time to activate those captions. And I also, of course, want y'all know that this is being recorded and we will share the final recording on our YouTube channel. So if you missed something, you'll definitely be able to rewatch it. We will also share these slides with you. So don't feel like you have to write down every single note. We'll definitely be able to share that with you as well. And so, real quick, a quick agenda for the Power Hour. And again, welcome to your Power Hour. We're going to do a quick introduction, and then I actually broke this down into three main sections, okay? Florida State Legislative Session, the campaign trail, and then voter registration. These speak to the kind of the three parts of my life every single day. I also, of course, have a day job on top of what I do. But I really wanted to kind of give you insights into different ways to get involved in 2026, kind of a choose your own adventure. If you're a millennial like me, remember those books. And so we really want to dive deep into each of these topics. Of course, this is the intro. If you get plugged into one of these arenas, there'll be more onboarding and training as well. But we really want to give you that perspective of how to engage with the policy work in Florida, how to engage on the political work, and how to also, of course, empower more people to want to get involved. And then, with that said, it's great to see folks. Many of you already know me. I see some new faces and names in the chat, but for those who don't know my background, I'm born and raised right here in Orlando. I actually grew up in East Orange County, so shout out to my University High School folks in the room. Grew up to a daughter of immigrants. My parents actually immigrated from Iran, but met each other working at the same donut shop in Orlando. So a true American love story. I have a twin sister named Ida and a big brother named Aria, and we went to Orange County Public Schools. I ended up going to UCF where I began my academic career eventually in political science, and from there started working in reproductive rights. Was the senior director of communications and public affairs across 22 counties at Planned Parenthood of Southwest and Central Florida, managing a team of six across 22 counties and 11 health centers when I was just 26 years old. And of course, made the brave decision to run for office as a first-time candidate in 2018 when I was 28. In that time frame, also started a PhD program, which I finally finished into 2024. So I do carry a PhD in public administration, have done some teaching in the past, and have a huge commitment and admiration to public education. And I do work full time. A lot of folks think that state lawmakers are full-time jobs. They're actually part-time jobs. So I'm only paid $28,000. I say only because it's not enough to survive. But I mean, honestly, it's more than some other states pay their state lawmakers. But because it's a part-time job, I also have a full-time job nationally. I work in nonprofit management, basically nationally. So I manage that on top of these day-to-day activities. So it's definitely not easy, but it's absolutely worth it. And of course, I also serve as the executive director and founder of People Power for Florida, which is a statewide voter registration and empowerment organization that we'll talk about soon. And I'm really proud of the teams that we built in all those ways. I do have two team members here. I want to give them a quick second to say hello if they're able. So David, you want to go first? Then I'll toss it over to Zane.
Hello, everybody. I'm David. I'm the field manager for the campaign, so you'll be seeing me at all the canvases and the other opportunities we have for you. And I'm just so excited that y'all are able to join us tonight and to get y'all more involved. And I'll pass it over to Zane.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Zane. I'm working on operations with the campaign team, formerly with the legislative office. So happy to continue with Team Anna. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you so much, you too. And I always like to brag, both David and Zane started with our Oniverse, as we lovingly call it, beginning as organizers, beginning as administrative support, really starting at the grassroots level and then building up to their positions today. And so at Team Anna, we do believe in building up new leaders, and we're so thrilled. Our internship program has now seen more than 300 alumni, and it's incredible. Many of our former interns all either work in politics or politics adjacent, and we're just so proud of the pipeline that we're building right here out of Orlando. I saw Joe ask a question in the chat. Can we share our Blue Sky contacts? I definitely want to encourage y'all. This is your community, right? This is a collection of like-minded people who are committed to building a more prosperous state and city and country. And so don't be shy to share contacts, DM folks. This is a one conversation that we will have many of, and we really want you to also build that network from here. The art of gathering is a really important effort that doesn't just stop when the Zoom ends, right? It starts with this Zoom. So definitely want to encourage folks to do that as well. And if you have questions with what we're talking about, drop it in the chat. I'm watching the chat. Our team is too. And so we will be grabbing questions as they come down as well. So up first is legislative session. All right. And if you attended our legislative session preview that we hosted about 2 months ago, this might sound familiar, but I think it's important to always provide that baseline education on the state legislature. And then we'll talk about how can you actually get involved with legislative session. And we're also happy to reshare that link, that full 90-minute session review with you. It is on our YouTube page, so I'm happy to email that out to folks as well, so you have that link. But this will be a quick review of the basics. So as a reminder, Florida's legislative session takes place once a year. So it is a part-time legislature, meaning we meet for only 60 days out of the year. We do have something that are called committee weeks that take place prior to session starting. And those committee weeks are where I guess you kind of think of it as the preseason, right? So football season, where folks are coming together, we're meeting, we are hearing budget presentations, we're calling in agency heads to ask them questions, and some bills do start to move, but there's no floor session. Floor session is when the entire body is on the floor, right, in the chamber, hearing bills that have passed their committees and are now being debated for the entire legislature to consider. As an example, one of the bills that we have filed, our right to repair for mobility devices, has already passed its first committee stop. It has one more committee stop on the House side before it goes to the floor. So we were able to get that bill a hearing already during preseason, during committee weeks. But obviously, our goal when session starts, which is on January 12th, I'm sorry, 13th. The 12th is Monday. So January 13th is the first day of session. Our goal is for these bills to get to the floor, right? To then go to the governor's desk. With that said, our one constitutional responsibility is to pass a balanced budget. And I'll talk about that in more detail. But that's the only thing that we have to pass in Florida. But it's not as easy as it sounds. In fact, the budget was the major issue of contention for the 2025 legislative session, which led to an extension of session by 40 some days. So session was only supposed to be 60 days by the state constitution, but it went over 100 days in 2025 because there was debate of the budget between Governor DeSantis and the legislative leadership. As a reminder, the governor can also call for a special session at any time, which very well could happen, especially on redistricting, which I'll talk about soon. So legislative breakdown. This is just a visualization of the makeup of the Florida House and the Florida Senate. Again, there's so much attention on Congress, and rightfully so. We need to also pay attention to the congressional makeup and again the congressional seats. But I really wanted to also remind folks that this is the makeup of the Florida legislature. The Republican Party has a supermajority of both chambers, the House and the Senate. So when it comes to our ability to stop bad bills, we're very reliant on public engagement. I always joke and say, I mean, it's a joke, but it's also serious. It's not one of those haha jokes. That like our options to impact bad bills in Tallahassee is to delay, amend, and destroy. So you try to delay bad bills because, again, time is your friend. If you can delay legislation from passing, then you ultimately kill the bill. You can try to amend the bill to make it less harmful. And you can also, of course, just like destroy the bill, like ask tough questions, highlight its lack of constitutionality, build the framework for litigation afterward. So really try to use every tools that you have to push back on what's happening. Jim asks, what committees are you on? So I serve on multiple committees right now. I'm actually going to ask my team if one of y'all could just grab my Florida House profile. Maybe Zane can do that. Drop that in the chat for folks to see. I am the ranking member of State Affairs and Ways and Means. And so really proud to be the top Democrat in two of the most important committees in the Florida legislature. State Affairs deals with any topic that intersects with local government, Veterans Affairs, election policies, land use, land development. And then Ways and Means is the tax committee. So I also serve in the tax committee. But in addition to those two big committees, I serve on multiple subcommittees, including human services, industries and professional activities. I also do serve on a private committee called Security and Threat Assessment. So this is actually a confidential committee. It's a committee where it's not open to the public because we're actually discussing pending threats to the state of Florida. And so we get briefings from different security professionals to better understand what are the threats that we need to prevent and also be aware of to then be proactive with in the budget and policy silos. So I also serve on that committee as well. Um, this is a very like complicated kind of chart with a lot of arrows. So I won't spend too much time on it. But if you've ever seen Schoolhouse Rock, then this will be familiar to you, right? This is how an idea becomes a law. So anyone can have a policy idea. In fact, if you look at the bills that we have filed, and maybe Zane, you can also drop our bill list as an example. But you can see some of the bills that we have filed when it comes to the upcoming session. And many of the bills that we have filed, not only have they become bipartisan, but they came to us from constituents. So for example, music therapy bill, our music therapy bill to define music therapy and develop a licensure for it came to us from music therapists in the state of Florida that we've been able to work with really closely to see their impact, but also see the challenges they've had with reimbursements of Medicaid. And so that bill came from constituents. Our drowning prevention bill, there's a lot of incredible organizations that we work with, including the Department of Health here in Orange County, that have been committed to preventing drowning for our children. And that bill idea came from Swim Global Project alongside other partners as well. And so many of the bills that we put together, our low prevention bill came from the disability community for parents with children with autism. And so we do proactively hear the ideas from our constituents and try to convert it into policy. Now, with that said, a lot of bills also come from special interests, lobbyists. I don't want to be naive about this, right? There's a lot of money that flows in politics, which I'm happy to do a larger. I've actually done a workshop years ago on how to track money in politics. I'm very happy to do that again if there's interest. Just let me know. If there's demand, I will do it. But at the end of the day, this process, right, is the same for every type of bill. A bill gets filed, it gets a number, it gets assigned to committees, and then it moves through the committee process and eventually the respective chamber floors. Um, and so I see some good questions already coming in. So Miguel, you have already spotted my Star Wars Easter eggs. There's a few of them throughout the presentation, and I worked on this presentation over the holiday, and I just love Star Wars so much. I wanted to sneak in a few here and there, so thanks for noticing. And then Amanda writes, is there a way to make companies pay a fee for the amount of plastics they bring into Florida with the overall goal to remove all plastic bags, cups, food packaging, bags, and straws? So great question, Amanda. This actually speaks to a few issues, right? One is called preemption. So basically, the state of Florida, because of large corporations lobbying the legislature, this is before I got into legislatures back in 2016, 2017, the Florida legislature was pursuing a plastic ban. But then companies like Publix actually lobbied the legislature to preempt restrictions on plastic to the state of Florida, which basically means they took away local control and only the state of Florida can decide on restrictions on plastic in the private sector. I say the private sector because local municipalities can still restrict plastic usage on public property and public venues, but they can't, for example, require that a company operating in their jurisdiction not use plastic. So that repeal of preemption has been a bill that I have filed many times. There actually is a good bill this year that is bipartisan, that is trying to give local control back on plastic restrictions. But to the heart of your question on, is there a way to make companies pay for a fee? That absolutely could be a bill. There could be a bill. It'd have to have some sort of formula associated with it that sets some sort of plastic use fee, cleanup fee. Now, of course, the bigger question then comes, well, do the companies just pass that fee down to customers? I mean, so there's a lot of thought that has to go into such a policy, but the short answer is yes. I mean, you absolutely could set restrictions around any type of business model around plastic usage to pay a cleaning fee, for example. But obviously that would have to. I look at other states for examples, and there's a difference between a carrot and a stick, right? So sometimes states will do the incentive model versus the mandate model. So it just kind of depends on what is more palpable, in that political environment. So the state budget, I really want to bring some attention to this, right? So I mentioned the one constitutional responsibility as lawmakers is to craft a balanced budget. It's important to note that Florida's budget is balanced with the help of the federal government. So this is basically a pie that shows the sources of money for the state of Florida. This is how our budget is developed. And obviously, it all comes down to the taxpayer, but there's different buckets, if you will, of those tax dollars coming to the state. And 31% is federal funds. So this typically goes towards federal programs like Medicaid, like SNAP. When we saw the federal government shutdown, for example, SNAP became one of the issues of concern because states manage their SNAP programs, but they're federally funded. And so that 31% is a huge chunk of our budget, and we could not balance our budget without federal backing. When we look at state general revenue, also known as GR, this is primarily made up of sales tax, also known as use tax. And so when you buy a product at a store and there's a sales tax on it, that 6 cents goes to the state of Florida. And then your local municipality might have another addition to it. Orange County has the half penny for schools, for example. Orange County also tried to do a penny for transportation. That did not pass, but they likely will try again. But only 15%, 1/5, of sales tax revenue comes from tourism. And that's really important because a lot of folks assume that we generate all of the GR from tourists, but most of the GR comes from you, the Floridian. And that's why, unfortunately, Florida has what's known as a regressive tax structure because we don't tax income. So everyone pays the same on products that they buy. And we do try to eliminate sales tax on some of the essential goods. One of the bills that I passed was the tax break, the permanent tax break on children's diapers and adult incontinence products. But ultimately, people who make less do pay more ratio wise on their annual salary taxation than those who make more. So we're always trying to make the tax structure less regressive. And part of that, in my eyes, is closing corporate tax loopholes. State trust funds. So state trust funds are fees and fines that come in through use tax, but also document stamp tax. So the easy example I can provide you is when you buy gas at a gas station and you're paying the transportation tax, that goes into the transportation trust funds. So sometimes when you pay a tax, it's going to go into a specific arena. Other times it's GR. Now, of course, the legislature has raided trust funds before. One of the worst examples is the Affordable Housing Trust Funds, which have been used to basically pay for other government responsibilities. And so just because it's a trust fund doesn't mean it stays in the trust fund. And obviously it should stay in the trust fund, but just doesn't always happen. And then expenses, and again, I'm gonna have to move a little bit faster. We have a lot to cover, but I just want to give you all this baseline education. Here's how the money is spent, right? This is the current budget. And you can see that our largest expense is health services, and then education is right behind it. And then natural resources, growth management, transportation is number three. We barely spend any money on the judiciary, which is a concern because it basically means that our judicial system is a system relying on fees and fines. And then, of course, general government. You know, Florida always brags about our ratio of government employee to citizen, but that also translates into really poor government services because we have state workers that are underpaid and overworked, like our educators. And so I think it's important to look at the numbers, but also understand the story behind the numbers, right? But this gives you a good perspective of how the budget typically breaks down. And then another visualization of this for you of just these are the pie chart um, arenas you just saw of funding responsibilities. But then this tells you where it comes from. Was it mostly general revenue? Was it different trust funds, right? And so you can tell human services, a large chunk is federal. Like this orange, if you can see with me, the orange denotes federal funding. So you can see that our education budget is highly, highly cushioned by federal dollars. I'm sorry, our human services budget is highly, highly cushioned by federal trust funds. Education, not as much, still very important. Obviously, this funding is often for our most vulnerable of students, but you can see human services is very reliant on federal support. All right. And then, real quick, the budget process. This is a process and a lot of folks understand, and it catches folks off guard. A budget reflects your values. So, budgets are really, really important. So much of the attention goes to policy, but ultimately, where we spend your money reflects our prioritization. And we saw this last year, the amount of money that was spent on immigration enforcement, on opening up detention camps. That money could have been spent on housing affordability, on public transportation. And so it's just really important to understand how a budget is built. And so, to make a long process short, we, as I mentioned during the pre-committee season, hear budget presentations. The governor makes his own budget recommendations to us. Agencies will have their what's called their LBRs, which is legislative budget requests. And so the House and the Senate will basically hear all that feedback and hear perspective from members from different stakeholders, and then we'll craft draft budgets. We'll both pass draft budgets from our respective chambers, and then we'll have a debate over what's called allocations. Allocations refers to how much money we're willing to spend on each of those categories I just showed you. Once there's agreement on allocations, then we begin the final budget being debated. And there is a process called conferencing, where basically we meet in joint committees and the House and the Senate kind of duke it out on their budget priorities. And so you'll see a budget document that's a kind of like a general ledger with like hundreds of lines, but it'll have columns that say House offer one, Senate offer one, House offer two, Senate offer two, because both chambers are going back and forth and debating policy proposals. And I'm sorry, in debating budget proposals that reflect policy prioritization. And then eventually we'll get to one final budget that has to be on our desk for a cooling off period, and then we vote on it. So a very quick synopsis. And obviously, the governor also has the power to veto line items on the budget, which he absolutely does every single session. The cooling off period is 72 hours. So, great question, Emily. All right. So I'm gonna grab some questions in the chat, and then I want to talk about some of the like most obvious fights we have right now. But there's so many other policy fights, and like I said, if you want to learn more about like those policy fights, um, there we did a 90-minute presentation about legislative session about 2 months ago that we will make sure you have a copy of. It's on our YouTube channel as well. I might be able to pull it up as I'm taking questions. But I do want folks to know that we have a lot more to cover. But if session is your jam, then I encourage you to watch our more full-blown review of legislative session. Um, okay, so let me start grabbing some questions. Um, in your opinion, for a bill to be considered bipartisan, how many votes does a bill need from the opposing party? I know some stats pretty generous in what they consider bipartisan. So, great question, Cole. It's a little bit different for the Florida legislature. A bill, from my lens, is bipartisan when it has Republican and Democratic sponsors. So, at the end of the day, the Florida legislature is a very top-down process. So, what I mean by that is bills don't move unless they're going to pass. Like, and there have been situations of bills that get placed on an agenda, but because there's a lot of heartache over that for different reasons, the chairman will pull the bill. In my now 7 years in Florida legislature and 7 sessions, I've only seen two bills die in committee. In my committees, in totality, 5 to 6 bills I have seen fail in committee. Because most chairs don't agenda a bill unless you know that it's going to pass that committee. But part of it is because as the member, you've done your legwork. Like you've met with all the committee members, you've confirmed bipartisan support on your bill. A few of my bills have not only Republican co-sponsored, but I've co-introduced them with a Republican. And so those are some of the indicators that like speak to a bipartisan bill. Like if it's gonna like and remember, just because you file a bill doesn't mean it gets a hearing. So that's also a misnomer. Like not every bill gets a hearing, right? Like a lot of bills will die without getting any hearing. So at the end of the day, bipartisanship in the Florida legislature more speaks to who's sponsoring the bill versus who's voting on the bill. If the bill is going to pass a committee, then you need Republican votes because every committee is structured where Republicans have the majority. And so Republicans determine if your bill gets a hearing, if it's placed on the agenda, if it's temporarily postponed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really important, to fight for your values while also leading in a respectful manner to maintain those relationships because at the end of the day, you have to work across the aisle in the Florida legislature to stop bad bills, to amend bad bills, or to get good bills to move forward. Okay, Victor writes, is the governor version of Doge affect the budget for future reference? Any examples? Yes and no. I mean, there's a lot of tension between the legislature and the governor right now, so they're not aligned. And so, in fact, we in the Florida House have actually stopped funding some of the governor's pet projects, like the Hope Florida program. Like we refused to fund it this year, and that was a bipartisan effort. And so, I would say that the governor's doging has more targeted local governments and universities than it has an impact on the legislature. But if there was a friendly relationship between the two, that would be different. But because our speaker and the governor do not get along, it's actually has not really impacted our budget process. However, I will say that the Speaker of the House is incredibly conservative in how he does the budget. So he has cut down Florida's budget by over $1 billion. So we are operating with a smaller budget than in past years because of the speaker's preference, not because of anything with Doge. Is legislation being proposed to eliminate PFAS in consumer products like dental hygiene and cookware, or at least products state PFAS in the product like the warning tobacco products, significant cost to remove and waste? Great question. I am not seeing any PFAS bills filed at this time. However, there are some bad bills that would do the opposite, bills that would make it harder for consumers to know what products they are consuming. There's a food libel bill, actually, that's a priority of Senate President Ben Alberton that I think comes from the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services that is really concerning. That actually makes it harder for consumers to know what's in their products and also to sue. So, unfortunately, I would say the opposite is happening. Okay, so with Doge and Project 2025 change at the federal level, can the federal government share be compromised? Absolutely, Martha, 100%. That's why I've been emphasizing the importance of federal funding for Florida because any cuts at the federal level impact our state budget. So that's a great question. And then how to advocate for more public funding for arts in the Orlando area. And then can you share with us updates on property tax issues, which I will. Second Harvest Food Bank cuts have limited resource for local pantries as a way to increase state funding for food. Yes, all great questions. So, um, let me grab property taxes first, and then I'll talk to these two like funding questions, and it's a good segue to my other slides as well. So, property taxes. At this time, there aren't too many updates to share beyond the fact that there is one bill ready for the House floor. So remember, the Florida Senate has not proposed any legislation on property taxes. Meanwhile, the governor's office keeps pushing for a complete elimination of property taxes, and the Florida House had a collection of 9 different policy proposals that all did different things with property taxes and all of them passed the first committee stop, but then only one moved on to the House floor. Excuse me, to the House floor. And the one that moved to the House floor has to do with property insurance. And basically, it says that you get a reduction on your property taxes if you have property insurance. But of course, it doesn't require that property insurance companies don't upcharge you. I mean, it doesn't necessarily shield you from increased costs. But that is the one bill. It would have an impact on local governments, but it's not as aggressive as a complete elimination of homesteaders. And so a lot of this conversation is also centered around the concern that if you eliminate property taxes, you're just shifting the tax burden to others, to non-homesteaders, which means renters, small business owners, and so forth. And with that said, I think there's very important opportunities for reform because there are inequities in the property tax system. But ultimately, a complete elimination of property taxes is going to really impact local governments, their ability to provide basic government responses to you and services to you. And it's important for us to keep that in mind. I know it sounds nice to get rid of property taxes, but ultimately, the cost of paying for government services as a fee versus putting our dollars collectively to pay for services are going to result in two very different things. And you actually will probably end up paying more if it is a fee service versus a collective approach. And so all of that is part of the debate. And so more to come on that front, right? But the Ways and Means Committee is where a lot of that work will happen. So I'll talk in a second about how to advocate on issues, but that's the update on property taxes. And there's of course other tax debates, like for example, Trump's tax bill. We're going to be having a decision on whether we piggyback off of what Trump is doing or if we decouple from what Trump is doing. And I would prefer to decouple because if not, we're going to be giving more corporate tax breaks in Florida to state corporations on their corporate income tax at the state level. So there's another conversation of taxation when it comes to the Trump administration. So mid-decade redistricting, I want to talk about real quick. This is still on the table. I know there has not been a lot of conversations about this, but this is basically the Florida legislature redrawing congressional maps to benefit the Republican Party, eliminate Democratic seats, and potentially eliminating our Congressman Maxwell Frost's seat. So the Florida House has convened a committee on this issue, and they've yet to develop any formal maps. But there's a lot of organizations like Equal Ground, Legal Voters, Common Cause, a lot of great organizations that are on the ground specifically on this issue for you to get plugged into. And so definitely want to make sure you have those resources post this orientation. And then funding for public education. So this is another really important issue. And of course, we're hearing right now, right? Just the in Orange County, multiple schools closing because of schools of hope and the privatization through universal vouchers, and the disenrollment of students. You know, there are 1,700 Venezuelan students who are gone from Orange County, and this is due to the Trump's immigration policies. And so funding for public education, as you saw with our charts, overwhelmingly comes from the state level. And so being an advocate on increasing teacher pay, in rolling back these policies around schools of hope, and I'm going to share with you organizations who are working on that shortly. And choosing public education and working with your school board to make public education stronger. Those are all different arenas to get plugged in. And again, there are some organizations that I'll drop in the chat soon to guide you in that way. But when it comes to arts culture funding, that goes back to what I just discussed, right? Of the budget process. So the state of Florida does have cultural arts and grants programs. Unfortunately, they're becoming highly politicized, where the state of Florida is giving itself more veto power over what organizations, even if they're vetted, even if they score high, basically allowing the state of Florida to decide that they cannot receive funding. And so that's a fight that we'll be having with the executive branch. But when it comes to arts and culture funding, there is Arts Day at the Capitol when organizations come to Tallahassee to advocate for fully funding arts and culture programs. There's also local organizations like United Arts that you can get plugged into. So there's a lot of great ways to get into arts and culture funding advocacy that I definitely encourage folks to do. Um, Okay, I'm gonna pause with questions because I want to get through some more slides and I'll come back to questions as well. So how to get involved. And again, good segue because I already talked about some of this, so I'll move through these fast. But contact your legislators, call, email, write your state representative and your senator. If there's one thing that you get out of today's training, it is to find out who your state representative and state senator is. And I will drop this link in the chat so you can do that while we're together. All you got to do is plug in your address and your city, and you can confirm who serves you in the state legislature, right? Super, super important. Hey, Dr. Bryant, great to see you. I'm going to answer this question. How can Florida residents get involved in state education policy? Well, we're doing that right now. And so personal stories in particular are very impactful. And so identify who your state representative and state senator is and get plugged in with them. Providing public testimony. So I always get this question, can I come to Tallahassee and testify? So yes, you can if the bill you are focused on has a hearing. So, unlike a county commission or a city council meeting where there's typically a time for public comment, for generic public comment, that does not exist in Tallahassee. You can only testify when the bill's being heard, and you have to testify on the subject of the bill. So, unfortunately, there's not really an opportunity beyond the annual legislative delegation meetings where we meet locally in the community where then you get typically 3 minutes to talk about anything you want. Usually in Tallahassee, it's just much more structured. But if a issue you care about, like education funding, is being heard, you can come to Tallahassee and testify when that topic is being heard. And then, of course, you can track and share bills. So you can follow legislation. There's a free tracking tool, in fact, on floridahouse.gov where you can track legislation. And I'll drop this here too as another link that we'll email out to folks after as well. And again, if you do watch our that YouTube link I dropped earlier, we do a screen share and go over all this in more detail, including how to read a bill. So I definitely want to make sure you take the time to do that as well. So, other ways to get involved with session is advocate with local organizations. So many different organizations host Days of the Capitol. They host phone banks, coordinated campaigns led by nonprofits, unions, issue-based coalitions. I know folks have asked about public education, so I do want to drop the link for two different organizations that are amazing on public education. They're actually the same organization but have different arms. And so one is Schools of Nope. The other is Strong Florida Schools. So Schools of Nope is a project of Strong FL Schools, but this is a public education advocacy organization. They do amazing work in pushing back against privatization and fighting for increased teacher pay. There's a lot of organizations like the Florida Freedom to Read. I mean, there's an organization for everything. And if there isn't, you can help start one, right? Meet with lawmakers or staff. And so schedule meetings in the district and in Tallahassee. And it's okay if you're just meeting with staff. Sometimes staff is the segue to the member, but definitely, reach out to your lawmakers and engage in that way. Engage publicly. So attend town halls, rallies, press conferences. Use social media or letters to the editor to raise awareness and shape the public dialogue. These next slides, I actually have this as a PDF that I will email out to everyone because I'm not gonna have time to read through this since we're already behind schedule. But basically, I have a white paper that I share with advocates on how to stop a bill, oppose legislation, and also how to support a bill to advocate for it. And it kind of it's repetitive what I just shared, but in a lot more detail and gives you like sample email language. Give me a thumbs up if that's helpful to include this post the training. I'm happy to email the PDF out to folks if y'all want it. Look in the chat, make sure you tell me, okay, I see some thumbs up, some engagement in the chat. I appreciate that. So I'll make sure to email this out in more detail so you have it. Thanks, y'all. Make sure you're paying attention. And so we'll definitely send this PDF over. You can share with others too. But it basically kind of walks you through that process and what are some of the tools available to you to stop legislation or support legislation. And remember, this also applies to the state budget, right? If you watch that YouTube link that again is the 90-minute review legislative session, I go in a lot more detail on public education funding, the FEFP, and just how that formula works, what categoricals are. So we go into more detail on public education funding, and it will just give you some more tools to understand how the system functions so you can make it better. Now, with that said, there's also for Team Anna here in Central Florida, there's also a lot of great ways to get involved with us in the district. And this is important because not every person can go to Tallahassee. There's a lot of ways to get plugged in locally in the district. And so you can help us with constituent services. We have a volunteer who has worked in healthcare before. And she is amazing in helping our constituents navigate access to health insurance. And we call on her all of the time to help someone who doesn't know their health insurance options, right? And so, thinking about what skills you might have to support constituents, maybe you work for a nonprofit on housing or food insecurity, all of that is super, super, super important. Community events. So, we're always tabling and we're walking in marches and parades. And so, you can always join us for those community outreach type of activities. Town halls. We're actually hosting three town halls this week. One tomorrow and also one on Thursday and one Friday morning with a specific organization. So we're always hosting town halls, more town halls to come. Not only can you attend them, but you can help volunteer to host them. Community cleanup. So we already have our community cleanup for Dr. King Day in Eatonville. And so help us beautify our neighborhoods and show up for our community in important ways. We're always hosting supply drives. This was such 2025 was an intense year for supply drives because so many folks were struggling. We did food drives, we did toy drives, we did period products, we did diapers, we did baby formula, we did so many items. And so helping us to host those and organize those. We have a volunteer that helped us organize our supply drives. She's amazing. And then press conferences where we host press conferences in the district to amplify different issues. Maybe your personal story. Like this is a photo of a press conference we did about Medicaid with SEIU, and really focused on our healthcare workers and healthcare needs. And so a lot of fun ways and important ways to get involved. And as a quick recap, right, like common constituent service issues that we've seen this past year, I alluded to a few of them already, but housing insecurity, healthcare access, and unemployment, these top three, they all intersect with the state of our economy. And they have been a heavy, heavy part of our caseload this past year. Folks who are losing insurance and can't afford it, folks who are facing eviction, folks who have lost their job and can't get their unemployment benefits. Of course, we talked about public education. We're getting a lot of concerns about not just schools closing right now, but what will happen to those buildings. And of course, also students with disabilities facing challenges in education. And I also want to, of course, uplift immigration. I've gotten a lot of questions building up to tonight's orientation about how can I get more involved in immigration. Um, really want to make sure we amplify organizations on the ground who are doing the work in protecting our immigrant communities. And so I'm going to drop these organizations links for you to explore later. Orlando Center for Justice provides legal aid support to immigrants. Hope Community Center predominantly serves our farm worker communities in Apopka, but they do a lot of great work in supporting immigrant communities and know your rights workshops and so forth. The Immigrants Are Welcome Here Coalition, that's their Instagram and their Facebook. They work in partnership with these organizations on the policy front of local and state policy. And then Flick, which is the Florida Immigrant Coalition. That's the last link there. Another great organization that serves our immigrant communities statewide. So definitely want to make sure those organizations are on your radar as they're very, very important partners when it comes to protecting our diverse community. And then I mentioned our town halls. Like this is just a very quick snippet of upcoming events that just Team Anna has. Like obviously there's so many other events happening, but like this is just a quick preview of events that we have coming up in the next month, right? Like our Crown Act community conversation with Black Girls Govern is tomorrow in Eatonville. We have Dr. King parades in Orlando and Eatonville, our community cleanup in Eatonville, Indie Folk Fest over at Lock Haven Park, Pioneers Day in Pine Castle, and our autism listening session at the Autism Society of Greater Orlando is hosting that will happen at Boone High School on Thursday. This is just a quick snippet, right, of community events that are coming up in the next few weeks that are on our Mobilize page, which Zane just dropped in the chat. But there's so many other events and activities that you can be a part of. And our team will follow up with you as well as someone who attended tonight's Zoom of different ways you might want to get plugged in that arena. And so let me see if I can grab some quick questions and I'm going to pivot to campaigns and then voter registration. So thank you, Mina, for dropping in. Mina focuses on Miami-Dade public schools. many of the same challenges. Mina just dropped her Mobilize. Thank you, Mina June. Appreciate you. Jim Callahan also dropped the SOE, which is awesome for your local elected officials. Thanks for doing that, Jim. I appreciate it. Um, let me see. Dr. Bryant asked about education policy. I also want to give a shout out to the unions because CTA and FAA are also very involved. FEA and UFF are all very involved in advocacy. And so tapping into unions, they're typically on the front lines of these issues as well. Yeah, so Mark also wrote about fees and sales tax also disproportionately impact low wealth and working class residents. Um, does using the Votes app website to voice opinion about various bills work? It's a great question. I am not 100% sure. I have not used Votes myself, but I think any app that is allowing you to directly contact a elected official is a good tool to use. I just know that a lot of the advocacy apps focus on Congress, not so much local. So sometimes local, you do have to do it yourself, but I think any tool is going to be a helpful tool. And then if you eliminate HOAs, you eliminate a second system through the federal government. There is a larger conversation about HOAs and HOA fees and so forth, and there is a bill around this topic too. So definitely a topic of conversation debate is HOAs for sure. So thanks for bringing up that comment. Okay, so campaign season. So obviously 2026, and this is me pivoting. So I'm pivoting to election stuff. Okay. So obviously 2026 is a major election year. We have multiple races up and down the ticket at the state and federal level and local levels. Right here in Orange County, we're going to have an election for school board. That includes the school board chair, where we have a Moms for Liberty candidate running against a well supported and incredible advocate for public education, Angie Gallo. And so a lot of important races in the August cycle. Yeah, March cycle actually for local races, March, August, and November. So really important elections in 2026. Every state house seat is up for election and half the state senate. And voter suppression is a real challenge for us. So every second of volunteerism really counts. I also want to mention that because of the potential mid-decade redistricting, we might have new congressional maps that are going to be litigated, but because of the timeline of qualifying, may be the maps that we have to vote on. So it's going to get real fast. And so being involved on the campaign trail to be plugged into these dynamics is something I highly would recommend. So how to get involved on campaigns? I always get this question. I'm a firm believer that campaigns have something for everyone, right, David and Zane? You'll give me a good nod. So, so this is a list of ways to get involved with our campaign. Obviously, I'm running for mayor of Orlando. We're very excited about it, but our election is a marathon, not a sprint. But we've been helping other elected officials and other candidates along the way. And I might not be on any ballots in 2026, but I will be at the doors. We'll be raising money. We will be engaging with our community and building up a new electorate of first-time voters and folks who care about the future of their communities but don't know how to get involved, right? And we're going to be that segue for them. And so voter engagement can take shape in a lot of different ways. Canvassing, which is door to door, phone banking, text banking, but also even just helping us host a canvas. You might not be someone who wants to knock on doors. Maybe you can't knock on doors, but you can host us at your home to launch a canvas from your home. That's super helpful when it helps to save drive time and get folks directly into neighborhoods without delay. Volunteer recruitment. We always need help finding more volunteers. We have admin days. This is envelope stuffing, postcard writing, organizing our t-shirts. We love our admin volunteers and they help keep the ship running on time, running smoothly. Yard sign delivery. Shout out to Ken Wally, who's our yard sign extraordinaire. But we get Oh my God, so many requests for yard signs. It's truly a blessing, but it also is a lot of work on us to get them out to people. So we need help to do that. Fundraising support, hosting events for us, introducing me to your friends and so forth, community events, and of course, any other unique talents that you have. We have a lot of volunteer videographers and photographers who offer their top talent to us in the creative realm, and we're grateful for that too. David, anything I'm forgetting when it comes to ways to get plugged in with the campaign?
Well, really, it's just if you can imagine it, we want to support you in helping us. And you're always free to reach out to me after this meeting, and we can talk in more detail with any one of you in any way you think you have a way to contribute.
Awesome. Thank you, David. Another new tool that we have at Team Anna that we've developed is called the Anaverse app. And this is actually our effort to use technology as a friend and basically building relational organizing, helping you to identify who in your personal network lives in the city of Orlando and helping to reach out to that network to come be a part of the Team Anna family. Actually, I'll toss it to Zane. Do you want to highlight? I know you're taking the lead on this project. Do you want to talk about the app real quick?
Sure. So the Omniverse app is essentially an easy way to get plugged in, connect us to folks that you know, identify individuals, and make sure that our reach is as far and wide as possible across the city of Orlando. And so it's super easy to get plugged in and to give us that information that will help Anna win in 2027. So happy to get you guys plugged in.
Thank you, Zane. And as David mentioned, we want to meet folks where they're at, right? And so we know not every volunteer is going to be comfortable going door to door, or like I said, maybe they don't have the ability to go door to door. But we have so many other ways for you to get plugged in, and there really is just no shortage of opportunities to help us. We also need more bilingual volunteers. We need folks to help us reach diverse communities. Our website is available in multiple languages. We're communicating multiple languages, but having that peer-to-peer effort makes a huge difference. Going to small businesses to talk about who we are and what we're focused on. And so we really want to make sure you know that there's great ways to get plugged in, and also shaping our policy agenda. We actually have a great team of just volunteers who are helping craft white papers for our policy agenda, right? How do we get your fabulous Madam Mayor t-shirts? Love that question. You can just drop me an email. I'll actually drop my email here for you and we will get you a t-shirt. We actually just got a new shipment in. And so don't be shy to reach out for a t-shirt as well to show your team on a pride. And I just want to kind of brag on our team a little bit. This is 2025 in the numbers for our mayor's race. And this is the first time I'm sharing these numbers. Y'all getting a sneak peek at our impact this past year. But we've had just an incredible impact. 33,000 doors knocked, tens of thousands of phone calls and text messages. And we've raised $931,000, getting very close to our first million, which I hope to do before legislative session starts. And that's from 14,000 individual donors. And so we're really, really proud of the work that we're building, but it's incredibly grassroots. It's not reliant on special interest or corporations. And so really the effort of everyone here on this Zoom and supporting us goes a long way. And so just want to express my gratitude to everyone who already has been plugged in, and encourage other folks to join us. We actually have a canvas on the 10th, our first canvas of 2026. And of course, welcome your involvement in all the ways that we already talked about. All right, so let's keep moving forward. I want to try to hit this by 8, and this will be a little bit faster. So, voter registration. So, I cannot stress enough the importance of registering new voters, especially when it comes to environments where, unfortunately, politics doesn't politics only comes up in a negative way, or people only think about it when it's election season, so it's too late. And so I'm a firm believer in a flourishing civil society where every person has the efficacy to be involved, to understand who serves them, who doesn't serve them, and to participate in that decision making. And so that's why 5 years ago I launched a organization centered on voter registration and voter education and voter empowerment, and that's called People Power for Florida. Um, this organization, I am the executive director, but I do not receive a salary. I never have, never will. It is a love project of mine, but I do manage a phenomenal team of full-time employees and part-time employees across the state of Florida. I raise money separately for this initiative, and we have been doing campus voter registration and community voter registration for these past years, helping to register and educate and empower everyday Floridians to want to take charge of the future of this state. And so there's a lot of great ways to volunteer when it comes to People Power for Florida. In particular, attending an upcoming training, which we will host soon, because Florida does have very strict registration laws. And in fact, there's pending lawsuits on these laws. But either way, you have to be trained and you have to be sign affidavit to do voter registration in Florida. But we're here to help that process be accessible, as restrictive as it is. And there are, fortunately, even prohibitions on who can volunteer with voter registration. But our team is here to help figure that out with you and to help you get plugged into voter registration. And here's some other ways that you can do that, right? Find an event or community connection where you can do voter registration. That can include something at your church, something at your community center, something that your small business is doing. We want to help you find help you find volunteers to do voter registration in your area. We're focused right now on the I-4 corridor. We do have a presence in Tallahassee and Brevard County as well. And if we can raise more money, we can get to other parts of the state too. But if you are living in let's just say Sebring, Florida, right? Or maybe you're a student at Florida Gulf Coast University. These are areas that are underinvested in political engagement. You want to host an event, we'll be there to help you. We'll send you a toolkit. We'll send even a staff member down to support you in your first go, and we'll be there as a resource. And so I also want to emphasize the importance of voter registration on high school campuses. There actually is a bill right now in the legislature that would prohibit voter registration in some sense from college campuses. So because of our success and bringing voter registration to college campuses, there is now a bill to prohibit that. And I just want that to settle in for a moment, right? There's literally legislation that has been filed to restrict the ability to do any type of candidate engagement on a college campus or voter registration on a campus because of how effective that we have been, right, in doing that. So really, really important to get plugged in voter registration as well. And so that pretty much, wow, we actually finished by 8 o'clock. I am so impressed. That was really, really cool. So as to recap, then we'll grab some last minute questions. And Mark, I see your comment. We'll definitely reach out and make sure you get plugged in. So thanks so much for volunteering to help on the advocacy and policy side. And then Aaron, I also see Aaron drop that. So if my team can grab Aaron's information, that'd also be fabulous. And so to recap, this is the power hour, y'all. So we did it fast, but we talked about the legislative session, ways to get involved, and we also recapped some of the resources I will share post this training. We talked about the campaign cycle, ways to get involved with the campaign, and we talked about voter registration and People Power for Florida. I want to give folks a minute to just tell me in the chat in one word after learning about all these ways to get plugged in, what are you feeling right now in one word? I'm going to give you a minute to do that as I also grab more questions. And so, um, let me see. Okay. Hopeful, go, hype, pumped, hopeful, encouraged, fired up, energized, empowered, ready, awesomeness, door, inspired, empowered, opportunity, excited, encouraged, inspired. Oh, y'all are amazing. Thank you so much for this great feedback. You don't know, you have no idea how good this makes me feel. To be vulnerable for a moment. I've spent the entire holiday just working, and so to see folks just share such positivity towards the work that we do, it definitely inspires me to keep going because I would be lying if I didn't say I was tired. I did not take any days off throughout the holiday break, and so really do appreciate y'all being a part of this because we can't do it without you. I would just be talking to a Zoom by myself if you didn't take the time to be part of this. And so deeply appreciate you being a part of this journey with us. I'm approaching my last year on the Florida legislature. And so we're going to make it a really good one, but we can't do that without you. And so I hear you loud and clear that folks want more trainings, more resources, more ways to get plugged in. I see Martha right. Some people are really nervous and this helps. So I definitely agree with you. And I know we didn't talk about federal issues as much. I apologize for that. I really plan this out to focus more on local. But of course, we'll have more content working with our members of Congress on other topics as well. But with that, I appreciate y'all for tapping in. I will follow up with the post-event email and other ways to get plugged in. But in the meantime, wishing you all again a happy new year. Hope to see you out there with our legislative office and legislative session with our campaign apparatus and with our voter registration, or maybe something in between that you'll creatively come up with, right? So thank you, thank you, thank you. We'll talk to everyone soon. And big thank you to David and Zane for tapping in and joining us tonight as well. All right. Happy New Year, everyone. We'll see you soon. Be well. Bye. See y'all soon.